What's it like to be a coach when you see a guy that you've worked with for a couple of years get traded?
Yeah, it's tough. That's tough. That's the, very important is building the relationships with players, and then all of a sudden in this business, a Zetterlund gets traded,
Right.
guys move on, and that's tough. It pulls at your heartstrings a little bit. Not so much because you improve them as a hockey player, but you built a relationship of who they are as a human being. So those are the tough moments as a coach, when you move on from the Chicago Wolves and you work with those players and you put so much into it and you build those relationships. And the same thing it goes when you're here in the National Hockey League. Those are the that's the shitty side of the business that really eats at you. But it's funny. You look back, and there's a lot of players I still talk to that I coached in the American League, you go play Boston, and you see Morgan Geekie after the game. You go play Calgary, you see Jake Bean after the game, and they text you, and hey, Jack Drury and Nason and Chatfield, and like that's the coolest part of the whole thing. You know, is that relationship part of it? Is having that relationship that you can look back in 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now and see Jack Drury get married, and yeah, you won together and you do all these things and you remember that. But the biggest thing is you remember the memories that you had with them and the relationship that you had with them. And I think that's the coolest part of this business and the coolest part of this job.
I can see that means
So
a lot to you.
yeah, it's emotional. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
That's all right.
I
Darren
wear
and I
my
are like Darren
emotions
and
on
I.
my sleeve, and it usually gets to me. I have a big heart for those guys and what they've done, and they put their bodies on the line, and they play through injuries, and I think that goes unnoticed for a lot of people.
Is there a player in particular that you guys went through a lot together and you both came out of it? You're in the NHL, they're in the
Yeah,
NHL.
I think Stefan Nason comes out big time.
Hmm.
Nace was a guy, obviously a first round pick, had some success early, struggled in, getting sent down, couldn't find an American League job, went to Wilkes-Barre, kind of fiddled around there. We signed him in Chicago, came in a little disgruntled, a little misunderstood, and you had to peel the onion back a little bit. And we worked hard on him and his body language and how we needed to play with and without the puck, and more so his leadership responsibility and how there's scouts in the building watching you, and you act out and you bang your stick. That doesn't look too good, Nace. And I think he's a great kid. He just was a little misunderstood, and he needed a little love. And I think he's one that really jumps out to me just because I think he was probably written off. And now you look at him now, and he's up close to 20 goals, I think, for the New Jersey Devils. And you watch him, and he's competitive every night, and he's in on puck battles. And I think he's really helped that team in New Jersey quite a bit.
Hmm. Finally, for me, you talked about Mike Sullivan when you were a teenager, listening to you and talking to you. And are you paying it forward? Is there somebody that's talking to you? Are there young guys that are phoning you,
Yeah,
texting you?
I think it's funny when I go to obviously the draft, and it'll be different this year, but last year at the draft, I talked to a lot of the CHL coaches, and a lot of there's some young coaches in there that have bright futures, that want to learn, that want to get better, and I'm trying to help them. And I think that's important to help the generation that's coming, help the younger coaches that are coming. My dad always said, "Don't forget where you came from," and I think that's super important. I was in ECHL for 5 years, and I loved every second I was there. I loved the grind. It was tough days. It was tough travel. There was buses breaking down, but I embraced it. I loved it, and I think it's important to never forget. Now that I'm sitting, in private charter planes and nicest hotels in the league, it's awesome. But I'll never forget. I still had just as much fun and joy in coaching when I was there.
Did you have one of those sleeper buses?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Those
I
are
actually used
great.
to sleep pretty good on those things.
I like those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
There's a rhythm to those buses that helps me fall asleep.
Yeah. I would get right up in the top bunk. Carbs would be underneath me, and we'd fall right asleep. And I think I was probably the best
no,
night's sleep I've had.
no thanks.
Yeah.
Really?
And then
if
you
a
hit
play,
the rumble strips, you'll get a little worried.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
if,
right.
if a former player comes to you and says, "I'm thinking about getting into coaching," what do you tell them?
Get ready.
No.
If you want to do it, you got to be all in,
Okay.
and I think that's former players, they think it's easy. Is why there's difference between playing and teaching and coaching. There just is. And nothing against guys that have played in the league and coached in the league for a long time. But I think there's some that are really good at it. But when you jump into this thing, you got to jump in with 2 feet. And I think you got to be fully committed to it. The hours, we played last night and you're right back at it, 6:30 in the morning, breaking down video, and you got to be all in. If you're just going to come in with 1 foot, it's going to be short lived.
Don't burn yourself out.
Yeah, that.
No, you gotta learn to pace yourself, right?
Yeah, I think early in my career, especially when I got the head coaching job in South Carolina, I remember I used to stay at the rink on game days and lay down on my floor, and I remember I got to February, March, and I was like, man, I got to get outside and get some sun and just see what the outside world looks like. So, I think that's something I've learned throughout the years of, you got to let go at times and the best you can and get outside and find a hobby just because it will take over your mind at times.